This is Leonidas, the king of Sparta, and he's got a problem. He's got a big, big problem. So big that even Google couldn't solve it. Picture this: 300 warriors, standing shoulder to shoulder, facing an army of hundreds of thousands. No Hollywood slow motion, no CGI. This actually happened. The Battle of Thermopylae wasn't just a fight. It was a story of defiance, courage, and sacrifice that still inspires the world 2,500 years later. And today, you're going to relive it as if you were there. We all know the ending of this story, but the question is, how did we get here? To understand that, let me rewind the clock to 480 BCE. It was a time when Greece wasn't one nation, but a collection of independent city-states, constantly squabbling like siblings over who was the coolest. Imagine Greece as a house divided, and the neighborhood bully, which was also kind of like an intergalactic gang of space pirates, started knocking on the door. His name was Xerxes, king of Persia, ruler of an empire that stretched from Egypt to India, basically the Instagram influencer of the ancient world. He had everything: wealth, power, followers, and a serious complex. Why? Well, you'll have to watch my video about the Hellespont to really get it. But let us just say he was salty about a bridge, and you don't mess with a guy who throws tantrums like he has too. Now his latest target, Greece. Why does he want it? Think about it. Power, prestige, and maybe because he was tired of hearing Greek philosophers roast him at dinner parties. We don't know exactly what happened at those parties, but rumor has it the jokes were brutal. So when Xerxes heard about the Spartans, an elite warrior group who took their commitment to dad bods seriously, he thought he'd send them a message. Let's take Thermopylae, a narrow mountain pass between central and southern Greece. There, a small force could stop his massive army. It was the ultimate Greek flex, defending the home team and protecting everyone inside. But here's where things get really interesting. Our hero Leonidas and his 300 warriors didn't just show up because they were bored. They were on a mission to buy time. While scouts watched the Persians like hawks, the rest of Greece would assemble its forces. It wasn't just Spartans answering the call. From all around the region, men stepped forward, eager to protect their homes. Together, they numbered in the thousands. However, Greece wasn't known for teamwork, and many of these troops were only there because their city-state told them to. And let's just say they weren't exactly best friends. Imagine showing up to a party where everyone's wearing team colors and suddenly you re-on the guest list. For some, like Athens, it was a chance to shine. After all, their navy was considered invincible. For others, like Thebes, it was a chance to prove themselves. After decades of war, their elite force, the Sacred Band, was undefeated. And for places like Corinth and Megara, it was simply about doing the right thing. However, this alliance was a delicate balance, held together by the promise of victory and solidified by the threat of losing their freedom. At the heart of it all was Leonidas and his Spartans, the backbone of the defense. The Spartans were an elite military force, training for war since childhood. Each Spartan boy was considered property of the state and underwent rigorous training from age 7. Girls had it a little easier, but were still expected to outlast any obstacle. They were tough, disciplined, and skilled fighters. And under Leonidas, they were ready to give their all. So let's rewind again to the scene of the party crashers. The year, 480 BC. The location, Thermopylae. The main characters, a handful of Greek city-states. And the antagonist, the biggest army the ancient world had ever seen. We're talking about tens of thousands of warriors marching in formation, each carrying the weight of the Persian Empire on their shoulders. Now, if you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of people, you're definitely not alone. Historians debate the exact numbers, but one thing's for sure, this wasn't your average Saturday stroll. It was a military parade, a display of raw power, and a warning shot to the defenders of Thermopylae. When Xerxes sent word demanding the city's surrender, he wasn't expecting much of a fight. He thought the Greeks would fold faster than cheap origami. But as the sun rose over the narrow pass, the Spartans stood firm. It was a standoff, a clash of civilizations, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Greeks were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. But what they lacked in numbers, they made up for in spirit. Each soldier was a volunteer, someone who chose to stand for freedom, for family, and for the city-state they called home. They were farmers, artisans, and merchants. Everyday men transformed into heroes overnight. But as the days went by, the pressure mounted. The Persian army was relentless, attacking in waves, testing the defenses, and looking for any weakness. Yet the Spartans held fast, repelling attack after attack. It was like trying to breach a fortress with bare fists. As news spread of the Spartans' bravery, more volunteers joined the cause, swelling the ranks and boosting the morale. But it was a temporary reprieve. The real test was yet to come. Then came the twist. One Greek, possibly tempted by Persian gold or driven by desperation, showed the Persians a secret mountain path leading to the rear of the Greek camp. Suddenly, the Spartans were trapped, their backs against the hot gates of Thermopylae. The escape route was gone. It was every man for himself. Most of the Greek force retreated, leaving only a skeleton crew behind. It was time for the Spartans to make their stand, and they chose to do it with just 150 men. When Leonidas realized he'd been betrayed, he gave most of his army the option to leave. Sure, it left them vulnerable, but it was better than certain death. Plus, 150 Spartans, handpicked for their loyalty and skill, were still pretty badass. They stayed, along with 70 Thespians and 80 Thebans, forming a desperate last stand. The odds were astronomical, but the Spartans were undeterred. They dug in, formed their signature tortoise formation, and waited for the storm. Xerxes must have thought he finally had the upper hand, and he wasted no time delivering the final blow. His army attacked, flooding through the pass, intent on crushing the remaining defenders. Spears clashed, swords flashed, and the air filled with the screams of battle. But as the Persians surged forward, they found themselves facing an unbreakable wall of Spartan shields. Wave after wave of attackers met the same fate, turning Thermopylae into a graveyard of Persia's elite. As the fighting raged, the Spartans held firm, buying precious time for the rest of Greece to regroup. They refused to budge, proving that courage can echo across millennia. In the end, they might have lost the battle, but they won the war. Thanks to their sacrifice, Greece was able to assemble its forces and turn the tide at Salamis and Plataea, securing victory. These battles were the making of a legend. The story of 300 Spartans who held off a massive Persian army became a tale whispered around campfires, testament to human courage and sacrifice. It was a story that inspired awe, respect, and a touch of envy. Who wouldn't want to be part of such an elite force? Fast forward to today, and the legacy of Thermopylae lives on. In movies, in video games, in tattoos and t-shirts, the spirit of Thermopylae resonates. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won, not on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those who stand for freedom, courage, and unity. The Battle of Thermopylae, a clash of empires, a test of wills, a story of valor. It's a story that still echoes in our tales of bravery and sacrifice. It's a story that whispers of courage, of men who stood firm when all seemed lost. It's a story that reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won, not on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those who stand for freedom, courage, and unity. It's a story that whispers of Thermopylae, where 300 made a stand and echoed through history. So when you find yourself at a crossroads, when the odds are stacked against you, and the path ahead seems dark and daunting, remember the Spartans of Thermopylae. Remember their courage, their resilience, their unbreakable spirit. Let it be your guiding light, pushing you forward, helping you rise above the challenges that life throws your way. Let it be the fuel that ignites your determination, the spark that kindles your inner strength. And let it be the melody that plays in the theater of your mind, reminding you that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage can prevail.